Welcome everyone to this special episode of the LIBERcast, and welcome to everyone who is going to listen to it. And if you want to partake in it, you can still comment on YouTube, ask for a question for what we're going to talk about, opinions, all of that, all these good things. Welcome, James, for this podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Fred. Glad to be here. Finally, we get to have a conversation.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun.
So tonight I had the intention of doing a roundtable, and this is one of the things that I wanted to do for a long time. So maybe we're gonna have someone later. James, if you want to talk about your work, I think it would be a good thing.
Okay, so my name is James Cordiner. I am the host of A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. I am the producer of Free Your Mind New England, and I am a co-organizer for the Shattering the Illusion event, that conference/online event that is coming up this September 24th of 2022. It's just about less than a month away from now. I've been producing my own podcast for just over 2 years now, and it's just been growing and growing and growing. And you know, I couldn't be happier to be a part of the community. I get to meet cool people like Fred. Last week I had David Rodriguez on, and I've talked to many cool people. I've made pretty good friends throughout the years, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. I mentioned being a co-organizer of Shattering the Illusion. Well, my other half for that is Joe Murray, who is a conscious hip hop artist, a truth hop artist, and he's based out of New York, and the dude's friggin' amazing. He really is. I say it every time. That dude is a wordsmith. He's a lyrically very proficient lyrically, and he gets so much of the principles and the teachings and the methods into such a condensed form. It blows my mind. So luckily, Joe has for about over a year and a half, almost a year and a half now, I've been able to use one of his songs as my intro to my own show, which streams just about every Saturday night at 9 p.m. on a bunch of different channels, including YouTube and Odyssey, Facebook, OneGreatWorkNetwork.com, FreeYourMindNE.com, and that's my website. And yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of fun. Talk about natural law. I try to help people ease their way into it, because that's kind of my role in all of this. I'm not the heavy hitter that some other people may be. I'm more of a, here, let me help you ease your way into this, because it can be pretty frightening. And when you start, getting into this work, going down a couple of rabbit holes, it can be pretty frightening. It can actually end up pushing some people away with just how the world actually does operate. And my mission is to attempt to just kind of be a little bit more easy on people, while still giving them a little bit of the tough love that they deserve. And yeah, that's basically what I'm all about, man. And so thank you for letting me talk about that. And yeah.
So yes, what kind of subject that you talk in your podcast?
So I like to cover a little bit of everything, but the core of my podcast, the core messaging is to relay information based, information pertaining to natural law, the principles therein, anarchy, true anarchy, and to help raise people's consciousness to a higher state where we could start thinking for ourselves, learn how to think, and kind of put away the things that told us what to think, and to leave those things behind us and move forward with a better position and, better feet under us, more power to ourselves as individuals, yes, and less harm being done to other individuals. And in the long run, we can hope to see that lessening of harm be carried over to the animal kingdom as well. I do not discount that approach. However, I do not press that upon people. I am more of a human to human interaction focused mind. But I do not leave aside the importance to consider the harm that is being done to the animal kingdom. I myself am not a vegan, which is why I do not concentrate on that part of the work. I do give it credit, but I don't concentrate on it because I don't want to feel like a hypocrite and try to tell people, hey, have this kind of dietary restriction while I turn around and eat some pork chops or have a chicken sandwich or something. I just don't feel like that would be right of me. But it is not right for me to really be, ingesting that type of food in the long run. But yeah, I mean, it's a mess. My whole diet thing is a mess. But that's why I choose to speak about this the way that I choose to speak about this, because I have work to do on myself. Who doesn't, right?
Sure.
And we're all kind of taking our own pace at this journey and trying to relay information that we currently understand the best that we can, getting the principles down and trying to help people understand the principles of non-aggression and self-defense are really the most important thing right now. And this is my opinion that we are in a state right now. We are approaching what could be considered a 0 hour when it comes to how us humans interact with one another. And it could end up being very, very bad. However, I'm not going to give up and say that it's worthless. I'm not going to give up and say that we have no chance left until the real Armageddon has come. But yeah, that's why I focus on human to human interaction. That's the core of my message, And then when I get there and I'm like, if I ever be able to become a vegetarian or whatever, or a vegan or whatever, if I can ever get there, then you bet your boots I'll be like, haha, look at me. Like, yeah, it's.
Well, I've been vegan for a few years, went back to vegetarianism. I'm not shaming myself because of that.
Yeah. No, you can't.
I've been I'm still I can still be very vitriolic about the animal right stuff. This is in this kind of subject that I think the most this subject there, it's a very good subject to debate and argue and growing together.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the debate and arguments around that subject kind of, again, this is just my opinion, but I see it kind of being placing a hindrance on our ability to actually get the real core work done, which is to wake humanity up to the ruling class's illegitimacy. Yeah. And that's, to me, the first step. And then we can knock down the other dominoes. Like, I always make a domino analogy where it's like, first, let's stop hurting each other. And then if you can do the other part too, that's awesome. That's great. But I think that the ruling class is illegitimate. I think outside external authority is illegitimate, and we don't have much time. We don't have much time left to really, wake a lot of people up to this and try to actually make a difference to it. So, yeah, yeah.
Well, this is why we're doing this effort, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Just try to reach as most people as we can.
Absolutely.
This is not a easy subject to talk about with most people. Sovereignty and natural law and moral ethics and objective morality and things like that. People are still very relativistic in their spiritualism and their intellectualism. They're still slave of their own mind. And I think the great work and the work we're trying to achieve, both of us, is to grow as a person and then help people growing and opening new doors.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. That's definitely the common point among our work. And I like to focus on the things that bring people together
Yes.
instead of the things that drive people apart. And I think that when we start talking about dietary restrictions and stuff like that, we're
Yeah.
doing nothing but talking about things that drive people apart. And it's a very tense topic these days, especially with the rollout of their agendas when they want us to eat crickets and stuff like that. And it's like it's just like, all right, let's pump the brakes. Let's take our time, and let's focus on one problem at a time. And the problem right now that is affecting most people is the slavery that we're in, that is being done to us by other people. And I mean, I know I'm wrong. That I always say it. I know I'm wrong about the whole eating meat in my diet. I know I'm wrong. Um, I know that it's a thing, and I know that it's wrong. Let me rephrase that. I know that it's wrong. However, what I don't know, what I lack knowledge of is how heavily can I depend on a vegan diet to actually give me the nutrition that I will need to actually be living a healthy life. So I lack knowledge on nutrition, and therefore I lack confidence on making the switch from the diet that I have now to a new diet. That's what holds me back, is my own confidence um, and the knowledge that I have on nutrition. But it's a good thing I know a thing or two about moral relativism and how to do right action. Unfortunately, I don't commit right action in my diet, but hey, whatever. Right now is not the time. Especially with like two little kids that are growing up, and like, it's tough. If I were living by myself, yeah, sure, maybe it would be a lot easier, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I just started getting into that whole dietary stuff about a year ago. So it's like I've been making progress and trying to like calm down on all of the meat that I eat, trying to pump the brakes on it a little bit. So I used to have about maybe, I don't know, man, about 20 meals, maybe 21 meals a week, maybe, 18 to 21 meals a week. And about, maybe 15 of those meals would have meat in them. Now, over the last year, I've kind of brought that down to about maybe 5 meals a week have meat in them. So, and even the portion of the meat that's on the plate is even smaller, because I used to have a very large portion of meat and a very small portion of vegetables, and I've kind of flipped those around. So I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. You're muted, Fred. You muted yourself.
I just to tell you, I have 3 girls, and both are vegetarians from their birth.
Oh, no kidding.
So I don't think vegetarianism is a problem as such. They're very lively, very beautiful, and they know about meat. There's
Yeah.
there's some way to talk to children and tell them the truth, and you let them decide for themselves. I'm not gonna put any meat in my house ever, so I'm telling them. So you want to eat meat when you're an adult and you're able to consent, and do whatever you do with your life, fine. But you're not doing it in my home. That's it.
Yeah.
And the children understand that,
Yep.
because I teach my children empathy towards animals and plants and things like that. So they have this very beautiful connection with nature and this respect for nature. They like trees and leaves and insects and little the birds and things like that. I like birds very much. They're very relaxing for me. I like watching them in the morning. They're beautiful, and their songs are the songs of nature. So yeah, I think this is no subject for itself. The morality and how to I've been I've been a little bit of activism for because I wanted to experience it, and then I learned a lot from it. The vegan movement as such is broken.
Yeah.
It's broken in pieces, and even the people who started the movement there, like the DXC and animal right activism, they were thrown out of from their own group because of the Marxist who infiltrated the movement in the beginning of the 2000s. So you have a bunch of communists and Marxists and feminists like all over the vegan movement, you know. So it's broken.
Sucks that things always seem to get like infiltrated, you know.
Yeah.
It really does, you know. Even our community, our you know, anarchist, you know, natural law anarchist community, it gets infiltrated all the time by a bunch
Oh
of,
yes.
you know, by a bunch of freaking morons. And you know, I don't say that lightly. I you know, it's a problem. I see it all the time, and especially with this, you know, I'm not talking trash about, you know, anyone that was in this HBO documentary, but you know, even my wife and I were sitting there watching that HBO documentary and like just shaking our heads, going, this just does not, this is not how it really goes. You know, it does not look good. I don't know how. Have you seen that? Have you seen that HBO doc, the documentary, The Anarchists on HBO?
HBO. No, I never seen it. I'm gonna look for it.
Yeah, it's a mess. It's all about anarchal poco,
Mm-hmm.
and like they're talking like the dude that throw the Jeff Berwick, who like people have mixed feelings about, but a lot of the things that he says is, hey, look, there he is. A lot of the things that he says are, you know, are pretty good things. You know, he's up on stage talking about, you know, some of the principles and talking about like what anarchy really means. But then the rest of the documentary is just like a murder mystery or like crime drama, and it just makes I took it personally where it's just like, this is something that I really care about, and there was an opportunity here to have potentially millions of people see a documentary about a group of people coming together. And we know something bad happened down there. We knew that before the documentary ever came out, but there was an opportunity there for the documentarians to kind of make that the side story and tell a story about a group of people that really want to generate healthy change in the world. And here is why, and here's how. Instead, it was all about people getting drunk, doing drugs, and this poor dude getting killed, and like it just turned into this shit show mess where it just makes anyone that says the word anarchy look like that. And I know people like Larkin Rose were there all the time, and like people that were there all like every year and everything, they come out and say it. What, like, I have this weird ability to look at things with fresh eyes. I've had that ability my entire life. It's a little bit of empathy, and it's a little bit of like, you know, I don't have a very big ego, so I have an ability to like step out of my own frame of thought and look at things with fresh eyes. And I did that with this documentary, and I said to myself, if I didn't know anything about anarchy and I wanted to learn, and I went and looked for it, if I saw this, I'd be like, well, this is fucking stupid. Yeah, like I'm sorry. I don't know how that makes other people feel, but I'm just, or how that makes other people, you know, react. But it's just what I observed. And there's a lot of one of the heavy pieces of symbolism in that show is like, I was watching it and it was like the last episode. I'm like, that fucking hotel is shaped like a goddamn trapezoid. Like, are you kidding me? And I'm just thinking to myself, that's satanic. Like, no kidding. It's like, it's a mess down there. And they have people like R.A. the Rugged Man and Wu-Tang Clan that going and performing there, you know. And our boy Mark Passio was there one year. He had his own workshop. He did his own presentation. They showed him for 1.5 seconds on the screen. One of the most influential dudes in the entire anarchist movement got 1.5 seconds of screen time. And he just was sitting there in a chair looking up at the stage while like Ron Paul spoke or whatever. And it's like, dude, the documentary did not do a good job at portraying anarchists in a good light. In fact, it did the exact opposite, in my opinion. And, you know, you had plenty of people that were there that they could have focused on, but they went with the drama instead. Because that's what gets asses in the seats, to sell the tickets, to get the people, to get the views and everything like that. Instead, they could have made a documentary that stood on its own, that stood firmly on its own, and actually helped teach people that this word does not mean chaos. And they did that for like 2 seconds. They were like, yeah, anarchy doesn't mean this, it means that. And it's like, cool. All right, we're off to a good start. And then it's like, but wait, let's talk about drugs and all the bad things that were happening there. It just got me really upset. So
Yeah, sure.
That's what you're in for, Fred, if you ever come across that doc.
I will surely watch it.
Yeah.
So welcome, Brendan.
Brandon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good to see you guys.
Brandon Martin.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking. We talked a little bit about children and vegetarianism and veganism, and then yes, you heard it, the fiasco of this documentary. You know, it was supposed to represent and show the and highlights anarchy, and then it has been like turned upside down. You know, and this symbolism everywhere. And yes, I think we have a long way to go when we're talking about anarchy, because I've heard a lot of different version of anarchy, and you know, you have these people who have the 3%ers flag behind them, and they're minarchists. You know, they're still statists. You know, they're just like regurgitating old diatribes from governments, like remnants of governments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
like Ron Paul. He's definitely a minarchist that I can't stand, and I know a lot of people continue to advocate for. Not that I don't agree with him about ending the Fed, but yeah, like what James was saying, that documentary was just horrible. You know, it totally painted anarchism in the antithetical ideological constructs that we want it to be painted. But we do also have to realize that, you know, anarchism is not perfection. You know, we're always going to have the risk of some chaos coming forward, but it's the unnecessary chaos that we're trying to alleviate, the unnecessary suffering. You know, we're not saying that anarchism is a perfected system that's a utopia. It just means it's far preferable than to the system of slavery that we're enshrining today, of moral relativity, you know, social Darwinism, Marxism, communism, socialism,
yes.
all these overlapping isms, you know. So just because we live in a state of anarchy doesn't mean that we're going to live perfectly and there isn't going to be any crime or anybody being
Sure.
addicted to things or stuff like this, right? It is going to happen. But we do have to be very cautious, since we're the ones promoting the ideas, that we need to step forward and make sure to paint it in the best picture that we can, because it's been marginalized, demonized, and just attacked throughout all of history, pretty much, since, you know, because we got to realize, first of all, that the word anarchy comes from the Greek ideology. It comes from the Greek Hellenistic time period. So we got to look at the history of what was taking place there and why that arose at that time period, why we have things like Stoicism come out, why we have things like anarchism come out, Gnosticism at this specific time period. And usually it's the people who are the learned men who are warred against, right? So we gotta really navigate it in a very positive and light fashion, and kind of understand that there's no way we can get rid of all the literature that uses anarchism with the definition of chaos behind it. That's always going to be there. There's always going to be books. There's always going to be writers. There's always going to be people who are using that word that way, or who have used that word that way. So we really got to navigate anarchism in a new, transformative way, And one way I think is by also putting it in lots of literature. I think literature, especially digital media, because digital literature, that's the new literature, is digital media, you know. I think Mark said that recently. So, you know, we have to put it out there as much as we can. And so whenever I hear people talk about anarchism and they're using it in the wrong way or the, you know, incorrect fashion, I entertain what they're talking about, but I also, you know, seek to correct them, because I can understand if you've been programmed to think that anarchism means chaos. My job is to convince you that it doesn't mean chaos.
Mm-hmm.
But also I can also translate that in my mind to be like, okay, this is what they're talking about. They actually mean statism in my mind, you know, even though that's what they're advocating for, you know, but really what they're talking about is the inverse of anarchism. So it's just obfuscation all around the board, you know. They've just obfuscated it, and they didn't have to do much. We've done it for them, right? We took it, we put it into the books, we put it out onto the television, like with this you know, HBO documentary. And it's something that happened at Skatopia, actually. They did a documentary on Skatopia, and all they wanted to do was focus on the drama. It was a documentary about Skatopia, and what they focused on was my father instead of the actual like community that we had going at that time. And so yeah, I mean, it's always focusing on what makes the money, you know, what brings the intention. And if you look at the trends, it's always the negative trends that bring in more money. It's always the negative knowledge that brings in more viewership, you know. And I mean, I saw a lady laughing the other day on like a TikTok video of her child getting drugged through the mud by an animal. Like I think it was like a pig or something, or a horse, some type of animal. I can't remember. But, you know, she's just sitting, it's the mother, and she's just sitting there laughing, sitting back doing nothing. And then you got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people laughing at it too. Like it's okay, you know, like why not prevent that? Like get the kid, you know, like that's not okay. Those types of things. It's very cruel. And it's something that we're going to have to deal with generationally, you know. This isn't an easy battle. It's a spiritual war, and we know it. You know, we all know it's a spiritual war. So there's a little bit of my
Well, it's
point of
pretty
mine.
clear.
Yeah,
You know?
it's pretty clear. That's right.
I mean, intellectually, people are fucking dumbed down.
Right.
It's evident. You know, you don't have to do studies to see that. You know,
Right.
I've talked
Is
a
my
lot
audio
of.
coming? I have a new equipment set up, so I'm not exactly sure how I sound.
Yeah, the sound is good.
I think it sounds great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's gonna be always a kind of a counter force to everything, and the thing is to be smarter than them. Usually, when I'm talking about anarchy or sovereignty or the great work or things like that, I'm telling them what it's not first. The apophatic method that I'm using a lot because when you talk to children, by example, this is the way to do it.
Absolutely.
You give them, you tell them not to do it, but you have to tell them why. You know, it's like the example from Mark Bastio. If you put your hand on the burner when it's on, you're gonna burn yourself. You know, and then the children has to choose whether it will be a principle by experience or a principle because you understand what I tell you understand what I tell them, you know. And most of the time people need to experience it, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. I've talked about that a lot. I don't think we're constantly like stuck in a repetitive cycle of needing to to learn through things like slavery. You know, I don't think we have to constantly experience slavery to get over it. But it is true that when we're children, we have to go through personal experiences, but not all of them. Sometimes we can watch it done onto others, or we can learn it through media in some form or another. And we can comprehend that intellectually and emotionally to the point that we don't have to experience that, you know? And it's just depending on how you're learning and how well you learn, you know,
Yes.
and how well you can use your imagination to put yourself in that point of view. And then if we want to take it to a metaphysical level, we can understand that all these experiences that we're talking about, such as experience of slavery or putting your hand on the burner, you know, it's already been done so many times in our species that it's epigenetically wired into us, and it's stored in what some call the Akashic records, or higher planes of our consciousness that we can tap into, where we can get gnosis from that. So we don't always have to experience that repetitively. I don't agree with the idea that we have to go through these cycles constantly of experiencing slavery and then into freedom and then into slavery and into freedom. At some level, that may be true, but ultimately what that does is it's self-defeating, and it makes people not actually want to do anything. It goes in this idea of, well, just go with the flow. And if we understand the principle of rhythm very well, then we can understand that, yes, there may be a current coming at us that's against us. Let's say we're stuck on a desert island and we're trying to get off that island, right? So we build a boat, but the currents are coming in, you know, instead of going out. So yeah, with willpower, we can overcome that current. We can overcome that wave, and we can get out into the ocean, you know, and out into that freedom metaphorically. So it's not always a good idea to just go with what's going on, because what's going on has been created by human consciousness that has been, you know, mind controlled and dumbed down and epigenetically, or epidysgenically is what I mean,
Yes.
epidysgenically bred down, you know. So we have to understand that we can't just get stuck in those secular ideas that this is just all part of it. This is all predetermined to be this way. Just go with it, you know?
Yes, it's the easy way, but usually it sends you to a pile of crap at the end. You know? Like people don't learn from the history, you know. Sometimes you have to go way farther than the library, you know, and
That's
you're,
right.
you know, you have to go like read a lot of different aspects, you know. When we talk about, for example, World War II, there's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of idolizing political personage. These puppets that are used for political, geographical, political means, and some people see them as heroes, you know, and because they don't know the history behind, like Churchill.
Oh yeah.
The history of Churchill, that's fucked up there. And
No doubt.
people idolizing this guy. So yeah, well, there's a lot of daddy issues and mommy issues that need to be resolved from the population, you know. I think it's that one of the base problem there. I If you mind, I would like to talk about masculine and feminine aspect. I think it would be a great way to bring the conversation. And I always want to have a solution, because we can talk about the problem all the evening if we want to. And I think one of the thing to be known is the principle of gender in the natural laws, because this aspect there, it's in every stratas of consciousness and nature and universal and all these things. I know you Brendan, you know a lot about this, and I want to talk more about the human aspect, the qualities. What would be the greatest feminine qualities for you, Brendan?
The greatest feminine qualities?
What would you suggest to someone, you know, to have more balance in their lives?
Well, it depends on what imbalance you happen to be in. But if you're in a chronic left brain imbalance, which would be, rigid skepticism, linear thinking, or just an over masculine kind of alpha way of thinking, right? Or where you lack true empathy and true emotions, then I would say that you can hear my dogs. They're ready. Give me a second. I'll be right back. James, you take over for me.
All right. So, what I think Brandon was trying to get at there was the idea of like the hyper masculine and lacking empathy, right? That's one of the last things that he said. So, what we need to do is we need to kind of, take in the more nurturing side. So, something that comes to mind when I talk about or think about the, feminine masculine balance that every single individual can have within their own self. I like to think about like Carl Jung's work a lot and how how his approach of it was about the anima and the animus, and because I'm a big Tool fan and I like that approach to it. But in all, it's just more or less just like everybody's capable of really having these traits and to learn how to embrace the side that is lacking. And it really just takes, like what Brandon was saying, what are you gonna learn about the person? How are they gonna be motivated? And just exactly what imbalance are they in? Even if they even are in one, because you can't really ever know what's going on in somebody else's head.
That's absolutely true.
So it's like, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to, your original question, Fred, about, feminine qualities and everything like that. I mean, there's a lot of things out there going on right now that come to mind about this whole phrase of toxic masculinity and about how it's a shame that it's being called that because, real men are nurturing. Like real men are caring, and it's like you're calling something that's just kind of this bullshit version of masculinity toxic. Like you're giving it too much credit when it's like, no, you're a douchebag. You're not you're not very masculine at all. Like like I said, real men, they're caring, they're nurturing, they have empathy. It's a pretty good balance. It's a balance that is struck. Nobody's perfect, but it's about striking that balance. But yeah,
I would have that about this toxic masculinity there. I think this is a double standard. I think it's hypocrisy. All these people bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, you can be toxic and just be a toxic person.
You're gonna call like natural principles toxic just because it doesn't suit your tyrannical agenda, because you want people to be lazy and not wanting to do something about their states. You want people to be submitted and on their knees. And if you get these qualities, these masculine qualities out, you're gonna have perfect slaves, because they're not gonna be strong enough mentally and spiritually and physically to surmount this mountain of propaganda and cultural influence and laws, endless useless laws against the most like basic fundamentals principle of humans and the laws and everything. It's I think the problem resides in education, and this is why the great work exists, because we have to take this knowledge in and then try to put it on for everyone to understand. When we're talking about care and attention and the holistic the holistic part of the human, where you're talking about like feminine qualities, and I think yes, most men are nurturing beings too, you know. It's very different than the mother. The connection there is very different. The children are very much attached to their caregiver, and their principal caregiver is the mother. So men usually are using for discipline and playing and having fun, and mother is a more of a, I'm not generalizing. It's not it's not the same thing for everyone. But I think the masculine aspect in family is lacking a lot. You know, the animus side has been like twisted and inverted and upside down. It's not most people have care now, but it's not care for good, you know.
Right. It's like satanic.
Care for their image and their wallet. Yep. This is what the care is, you know. And people think that it's oh, the children are way more and way less abused now. No, it's completely contrary. You know, we have a whole generation that have been broken by intergenerational mind control. Broken. I'm telling you, it's not. I'm not fucking kidding. I'm talking to these people, and there's nothing. No emotional response. No reason. It's about me. Me. This is where we're going, because people like this. People like this. People like daddy and mommy government. And this is why we're fucking doing it. Is to break this with truth, with words. Because you cannot force someone to do something they don't want to do. You have to tell them and repeat and repeat and repeat until they understand, if they're will to do it. Well, we still have to do it. And if you don't have this balance between your feminine and your masculine, you're gonna make grave mistakes. Your judgment will be obscured, confusing. I think we have to be both. Not more of a masculine, not more of a feminine. I think we have to be both caring, but both the force, the action. And we have to be intuitive, like the feminine aspect, and listening to our guts and listening to our brain and our hearts. And this is there where people get confused about it. We don't have to be perfect, you know.
Right.
We will struggle most of our lives, you know, just to correct our own traumas, our own problems, our own schisms, you know. I'm not gonna support everyone. I'm not gonna hold the world on my shoulders. I'm not gonna do it. But I'm gonna take the hand of the people who wants to. I'm gonna tell them these stories, you know. Tell them these ideologies, tell them these rhetorics and axioms and principles as much as until I'm fucking dead. I don't care what people think. You know, you will not make friends a lot in this work.
Yeah, that's true. That is pretty true. I mean,
Yeah.
we've made friends with each other. That's something to be said. You know, I've never shook you guys' hands, but I consider you my friends. So there's that. So there's a bright side, and all the darkness is a reason to keep going. You know, and it's and I really appreciate you having the dedication there, Fred. So I pulled up, and while you were speaking about that, I pulled up a let me see here. I pulled up this that I'd like to share, if I may. You guys can see that? Can you see that?
I can't. No.
Okay. Yes, I can see. Let me see. Here we go.
Oh yeah.
So we have here the something that Fred was speaking about earlier, a slide that I kind of copy and pasted this. I'm not gonna lie, but anyway, it's not important. So we have the mental functions, how the mental schism happens, you know, and so on the left, would be the masculine side, and we have analysis, language, math, logic, reading, and writing, and I believe there's one other thing, and then we have the right side where the feminine side would be the personality, creativity, music, art, dreams, intuition. We see kind of a theme here running along both sides. One theme is more in the more physical realm, and you can see that would be on the left-hand side, and then the right-hand side would be a theme of more in the ethereal realm, the creative realm, a spiritual realm, more of a, how would you say, you know, anyways, so what we're talking about here when it comes to striking a balance is to try to, you know, kind of run through these lists, and I'm sure that there's more that could be listed here, but you know, it's not just as simple as listing about 5 or 6 things on each side and saying that this is the makeup of a human consciousness. I'm just saying that this is a pretty good summation of a lot of different things that you could kind of just simply list, you know. So I mean, when we're talking about feminine qualities that are lacking that in each individual, I mean, there's a lot of art and a lot of creativity that we could be doing to kind of bring us back to the realm of realizing that not everything exists on the material plane, and not everything relies on logic and math, as it says on the other side, on the left, on the masculine side, that there are some things that can be left up to your imagination. And that is something that is lacking a lot, and a lot of in the world is, you know, imagination has been the subject of. I'm gonna stop sharing this now, but imagination has been, you know, the subject of attack for a very, very long time, and that's something that I'd like to talk about a little bit more in my time about, is like, you know, how do we get back to nurturing the imagination. But I mean, when it comes to striking balance, the ignition is care. So everything that you seek to do should be done under true care, and true care comes in after realizing that you're sick and tired of realizing that maybe you performed some wrong actions, admitting that, and wanting to do right. So that's where true care comes in. You understand the difference between right and wrong. You make a conscious decision to perform right action because you don't want to do wrong things. You're tired of being, violent. You're tired of being aggressive toward people. I mean, Brendan, didn't you say a while back that like maybe using the term non-aggression should be we should reformat that and try to say it more as like non-violent, like the principle of non-violence, because sometimes aggression is needed. Like you were saying, Fred, where you got to get up. You're like, what are you going to do? Getting angry, getting aggressive might actually be a good thing. Like when you're speaking about this stuff, like sometimes dude, in my own experience, I know for myself, like it took like feeling like I was getting yelled at personally to make me go, you know what? Like there's some things about my life I got to change and, try to be a better person. But
So
yeah, I always say that my best friends are the ones who have told me the hard truth, and that includes myself. So sometimes we have to be very critically hard on ourselves to get out of the state of apathy or, self-loathing. Since you're speaking about care, the lack of care would be apathy. We need to, gain true self-respect, and that can only come about through introspection. So we have to take a good deep look within ourselves, at our psychology, at our behaviors that we're putting outwardly into the world. And when we start to connect the patterns, and this is one of the problems I see, is that people have a low pattern recognition. So they don't connect the patterns of consequences from their behaviors, or what's taking place in themselves and how their behaviors are coming from their thoughts. Or let's say people who are overreactive with their emotions, they don't realize that a thought usually precedes that emotional aspect before it happens. They teach you this in therapy a lot, So if you can, because there is no time in the mind, you can really just have an absence of time in your mind. And it seems like it happens so quick when those emotions come up, right? But usually there's a thought that precedes that. And a lot of people don't realize that. And when they become conscious of that, then they can actually not react upon the, biological chemicals that are flooding their body. And then they're just responding, immediately to that. So yeah, introspection, doing some introspective work is really important, some shadow work. And those are solutions. You wanted to talk about solutions. I think solutions are looking within yourself. You're not going to go and put the world on your shoulders like you're talking about, like Atlas. You can't do that right now. You got to clean up your own house before you can go out and start cleaning up anything out into the world. Nobody really has the ability to clean up the world's trash when they can't even clean up their own bedroom, let alone the trash in their own mind. So we got to work on small incremental, solutions. And for some people, it's going to take a lot of time. And we also have to recognize that there's people out there with mental disabilities, people who have brain damage, literal from physical trauma. And some of those people may not ever be able to come to some of this knowledge because of, I mean, I know there's neuroplasticity and the brain changes, but, sometimes they're 70, 80, maybe 90 years old with these brain conditions, So we have to also be able to work within that understanding that not everybody is going to understand these things, and we can't just lash out at them if they don't. The main thing is to make sure that they're not committing any forms of violence, obviously, when it comes to those types of people. And if they are, let's say that they're mentally unstable and they have an impulse issue, we have to learn to navigate those things. We're going to have to make room in society for mentally handicapped people. That's just the truth, and we do it horribly. We do it absolutely horribly. But I wanted to go back earlier. You were talking about toxic masculinity. I think that's what's happened is that a lot of people tend to take generalized or take aspects of something and then they generalize it into an absolute. So in their mind, they see that there's toxic traits within a person's psychology, and then they immediately associate it to something else because it happens to be, primarily coming from men, let's say, or from females, let's say, one or the other. And then we falsely associate that to the gender, just like we do with race or something like that. And then it leads us into this false correlation where we think that's the problem, and that's not the problem. So there's no such thing as toxic masculinity or femininity. It's just toxic traits and toxic psychology and toxic behaviors. That's it. And we all have them. We all have the same amount of evil within us that we can manifest. Every person can do the same crime that any other person can do. Yeah, some people who are richer can do it at a wider scale and do more devastation with it. But ultimately, at the fundamental root, it's the same thing. They're committing an act of evil. They're committing an act of genocide or theft or, some form of violence onto another sentient being. So I think that's part of the issue, is that we do groupthink, but we also do ideological groupthink, where we take ideas and we group them, and then we guilt by association. So we guilt it by the association of masculinity, so females have been, abused by men, and then they immediately associate that to the problem, rather than not understanding the causality of that is the programming and what's coming from the inside, so it's a big deal, and we see it all over the place. I mean, it's ramping up, but I do think it will die down eventually. I don't think that stuff can last very long. Personally, I think that it's going to hit a peak, and then it's going to start to die down, because within any kind of system, if you look at the principle of rhythm, it will come up and it will go down, because they're more in the flow with things. That's why they're easily to control, is because they go with the flow with everything. So if you can control that wave, then you got everybody where you want them to be.
So we have a question from Tanya.
All right.
You care to respond, one of you two?
Sure.
About this? Can you see?
So shadow work comes from a psychologist, excuse me, named Carl Jung. Jungian theory has a lot to do with the inner workings of a person's psyche. And shadow work is, to sum it up pretty quickly, would be that people have this inner self, this inner personality. So what they put out on the surface would be called your persona. And the things that you hide is what would be considered your shadow. It would be the dark parts of your personality that you may be weary of putting out in front of other people, in fear of maybe being disowned, or, having trouble socializing, or whatever might hold you back in life. And so it can be equated to kind of like the beast within. And the whole idea of shadow work is to kind of come to terms with the things that make up the negative things that are inside of your subconscious, to come to terms with those things, to learn how those things came to be, to kind of, learn how to tame that beast within and live with it. So this whole idea is that shadow work is never really done, and that there are constantly things happening in your life that are building upon the shadow, and that it's something that you constantly have to do, is like a constant work upon yourself. That's where the shadow work phrase comes in, is you're basically getting to know the dark side of your personality and learning to kind of, again, tame it, live with it, and to know the things that, I guess, for lack of better terms, the things that would trigger the negative sides of yourself, and kind of the idea is, in the long run, is that you kind of amalgamize the shadow and the persona into one being, into one whole of your psyche. And this can bring upon a different form of mental balance in theory. And that is a Tool. I like to bring it back to Tool, because the song 46 and 2 by Tool is about the Jungian shadow work mixed with this theory that the gentleman named Drunvalo Melchizedek had about the next step in human evolution would be one of a conscious evolution, and that we would actually gain 2 more chromosomes from it. And they kind of took Jungian shadow work and put it together with Drunvalo Melchizedek's work about the 46 and 2, and Tool, the singer of Tool, Maynard, he basically said, this is how we do it. It was through the Jungian theory of the shadow. So there's a lot of literature out there that you can find that would do a lot better job of explaining it than I can. There's probably a crash course on it is basically just that. So I hope that helps.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, I think it was well said.
Brendan?
I think he nailed it.
Yeah.
That's the most simple way. I couldn't have said it any better myself without making it too complex. So
I just want to add that it's not only bad traits and habits and things like that you have in some subconscious. It's repression, emotional repression. You talked about traumas, and I just want to bring that up because I'm a shadow worker since years now. There's good that coming from that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, like he said, we have to learn to live with it. So
Yes.
I always say you have to befriend it, and you can't just. One thing is you don't want the shadow to be in the throne of the self, just like the ego. You don't want the ego to completely dominate the self. The ego nor the shadow is a negative thing in the idea that it's evil, that it should be completely eradicated. It's something that we're always going to have to live with, and we're going to have to unify with, but it's how we temper that. It's how we navigate it, and how we learn to use that in everyday lives for pragmatic solutions and for real solutions, So we have to befriend it, There's just no way around that. Everybody thinks that we have to get rid of those things, and that's not necessarily the case. They're not just going to magically go away. They're going to be there. The shadow is always going to be with you. So I think he said it really well, and I'm glad that you added that in too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because that should be clarified, right? Because it's not about negative as in like bad things. It's about negative in the sense that it's the things that your subconscious casts to the back end of the room, so to speak, where, where like you're not, and it's about parts of your personality that influence you to do things that you may not be presently aware of because your subconscious has, like I said, cast it to the back of the room. Like think of it like Raiders of the Lost Ark, where like they go into that warehouse and the box is being put and it all looks the same. And it's, but anyways, enough with the movie analogies, but yeah, it's not negative in the sense of bad. It's just negative in the sense of things that you're unaware of the influence that it has on your persona and your outward expression of these hidden traits. That's why it's called a shadow, because the light casts upon you and casts a shadow behind you. Okay, and you don't, and every time you try to the shadow's following you, you see, and it's only because of the light that it's there. And so I don't know.
Yes, and it's absolutely a connection with the principle of correspondence.
Yeah, like you said earlier about people not being able to see patterns. Like that's Brandon. Like Brandon said earlier about the pattern recognition. That's the principle that goes hand in hand with the principle of correspondence, about raising your awareness of the things that are going on around you, raising your consciousness to have that ability of the things going on around you. And shadow work actually plays a huge role in that, because you have to get to know yourself first. It's like you said about cleaning your house, get your house clean. Not only physically your house, your docile, like your domicile, but like also the metaphorical house of the structure within your mind, clean your mind, get to know yourself, and then that helps. And that's Jungian shadow work, to a core. That's the whole inspiration behind it, is to kind of see how people, Jung and Freud had always had like a bit of a back and forth, because Freud was always talking about some weird shit. And I mean, a lot of psychologists do, but Freud was always on like some really weird shit. He was obsessed with genitalia. He was obsessed with cocaine and obsessed with like the Oedipus Rex syndrome. And it was kind of really strange. And it was like, he had a lot of problems of his own. I'm sure a lot of these psychologists do. I mean, what influences somebody to really try to get into that? But I don't know.
Yes, and absolutely right.
One other thing about plasticity. You said about plasticity. That term comes. Well, that a part of that term comes from how I'm familiar with that term, I should say, because I don't want to speak to the origin of the term, but how I'm familiar with that term is with the idea of torque and torque on a bolt. I am, a kind of shade tree mechanic. I know how to fix cars. So I've done that for a very, very long time in my life, and I'm familiar with torque. And torque is basically just how much can you tighten a bolt before it snaps, like that. So you snap a bolt, that's because you reached its plasticity. And so it's about the bolt goes in the hole and it tightens, and you keep tightening it and it stretches out. stretches out and stretches out and stretches out.
Yep.
And then it snaps because it reaches that plastic point. And it, like, that's so I don't know. I kind of wanted to bring that up and see if that could, like, I don't know, bring out some other stuff. But to go way back, again, about the HBO documentary, something that nobody seems to be pointing out is that, you know, HBO is owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers also owns CNN. And they also own, and then Warner Brothers used to be owned by Turner Media. Ted Turner was a eugenicist. I just wanted to point that out. A very evil man. And what is also weird is that all of those things that I just said, and they made a documentary about a man that got shot and killed, his name that he chose for himself, because his real name was Shane or whatever. And the name that he decided to choose for himself when he was on the run was John Galton. Now, why is that significant? Galton, Sir Francis Galton, is the father of eugenics, and they're airing this documentary on a television broadcast network that is affiliated with another famous eugenicist, Ted Turner. It's just a connection that I made, an observation. Again, it's just an observation. I'm not trying to say anything. It's just I've never heard the name Galton other than Sir Francis Galton, who is who's also Charles Darwin's cousin and the father of eugenics. So it was very strange to me that this poor young kid that fell victim to however that went down, he chose the last name Galton for whatever reason. I'd really like to know why. I mean, why? Like, why would, of all the names you could have chose, you went with Galton? Why'd you go with Galton, dude? And it wasn't because Francis Galton also invented the dog whistle, and that's not. And I don't know. Tangent over. I'm sorry. But
yes, there's a lot of influencers. You know, it's still they're not vanished. You know, they're still there. You know, it's even more now. It's even worse now, because now people, they don't have to be coerced. You know, they had to be they're influenced by the culture. You're talking about all these big heads of eugenism, and these old influencers of society, and you can see it. You know, you can still see the Marxism and the environmentalism and all these tools that are used to defame and ridiculize like the things that make us grow for hundreds of years, thousands of years. You know, like men and women, the concept of men and women. Now it's not that anymore. You know, man. You would have said that to me 20 years ago. I would laugh in your face. You know, I would said, yeah, you're fucking crazy, man. Never gonna happen. But fucking hell, it's happening. You know, people are confused now. Like, yeah. You talk about the documentary. Let me tell you about what is a woman.
Oh, that was
yeah,
dude,
yeah,
that was powerful, man. That
oh, you know, my God, I sat with my wife, listened to all of the documentary. I both being very angry and I laughed in the documentary. You know, I was fucking pissed. You know, but I had to laugh about the ridiculousness of this and how stupid people are. And like, are you fucking crazy?
Yes, they are.
He has
yes, they are. That's for sure.
He asked 4 women, what is a woman? And nobody answered. They were at a woman right walk. Are you fucking out of your mind?
Yeah.
It's like your women. They were literal women who could not say what a woman is. Like, when you start from there, it's not because you lack education. It's because you're fucking retarded.
I know you're not trying to be funny, but it was just the gravitas of it. Really,
It's fucking ridiculous, man. I cannot fucking understand it. You know, I cannot fucking stand it.
Yeah.
I'm listening. I'm fucking plunging myself in this shit. I listen. I follow some YouTubers who are like showing them like this circus of deception and lies. You know, they're telling you, oh, we're gonna drug the little children to stop their puberty, and then sterilizing them at the same time. And people are like, oh, that's so great what you're doing for the children.
So if I could interject,
Sure.
if I may, sorry, there is something that you just said that I would like to draw attention to about drugging children, and I have a theory, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has this theory about how the question is, how did we get to this? How did we get here? How did we get to a place where men think that they're women and women think that they're men? Like how? It's been a thing for a very, very long time, but never so prevalent in culture as it is today. There's a lot of things in history that show you that the breakdown of civilization is always almost always precursored by the obfuscation of gender amongst the people. So that's one thing I would like to draw attention to. But physically speaking, like how did it come to this? I have a theory about the overly medicated children from the late 80s and the 90s, because these are the people that are in their 40s right now that are doing all this stuff. They're in their 30s and 40s right now.
Yep.
They were kids in the 80s. They were kids in the 90s. I'm one of those kids. I'm not a weird gender role guy or whatever. Like I have all my bits and pieces, and I know what they do, and I know what I'm supposed to do with them. And you know, I'm a man. I got a beard. God damn it! Not as beautiful as Brandon's or yours, Fred. But anyways, jokes aside, so
I'm flattered.
Yeah. But yes, the over medication in terms of psychostimulants, for instance, they actually have an effect on the hypothalamus and a lot of the effect on the adrenal glands, and they have an effect on a lot of different parts of the body. So medications, which we know if you watch documentaries such as Generation RX, and if you watch documentaries like The Minds of Men, we know how, like, you know, and not so much The Minds of Men, that is more just like how they decide, like, anyways, but Generation RX is definitely information in there where you'll learn a lot more about it. So anyways, these medications have long-term effects, and when you're giving them to children that haven't even gotten out of their formative years, then their whole life is fucked. And it's a very big problem. So when you have men out there who were medicated at very young ages, well, during the 80s, more so in the 90s. And so Adderall and psychotropic drugs with the ADD and bipolar explosion during the 80s, I will tell you that it started in the 80s, but the explosion really happened in the 90s. And that is a very big problem. And we see that today in the manifestation of all of these fucking psychopaths that are running around. And we wonder why it's going on. It's like these people have been medicated their entire lives. They're not normal people. They're just not. I mean, what is your standard metric of a normal person? There isn't one. But I know I've flippantly used that term, but yes, like it is just a term. They're psychos, flat out. They have a mental imbalance. They have a medically induced chemical imbalance of their bodies and brains when it comes to the way that their bodies regulate the hormones that their bodies are supposed to naturally produce. And their brains can't handle it. So they get fucked up in the hypothalamus, and that is the mood center, It has to do with a lot of regulations of hormones. It even has to do with memory and everything. Like a lot of the core things that make up the way a human leads a healthy life. A lot of those processes happen in the hypothalamus. And I mean, that's just one man's opinion, man. But I mean, it's something that I've been doing a lot of research on, and I don't know. I hope people can glean from that in a positive way to kind of help them understand, that these people can't be reasoned with for very good reasons. They don't have the physical, mental capacity to accept reasonable solutions to unreasonable situations, an unreasonable environment that they've been brought up in.
The happy pills.
They're not even happy pills.
Yeah,
they're not even happy pills, Fred. They are pills that will literally make a chemically induced slave. Like
fucking crazy.
It's artificial happiness,
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's 2 steps away from putting on a virtual reality glasses.
Yep.
Like it's really bad, really bad. And they did this to children, 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 7-year-olds. Then they medicated those kids for the rest of their lives. Not many of us got out. I was medicated from that age. I've stopped taking them about a decade in. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It was ruining me. Some kids don't ever stop taking it. And what happens a lot of the times is a kid will start taking medications for something like ADHD. The meds will work for about a few weeks, and then the effectiveness of the pills will wear off. So they up the dose, and then that happens again. And the parents go, we don't know what's going on. The doctor goes, oh, not only does now the doctor says not only does the kid have ADHD, but they're going bipolar as well. And it's like, no, just stop, like wean the kid off the meds. Maybe fix his diet, because a lot of it has to do with dopamine, and when the dopamine comes from, and like it's just you're messing with the body's natural regulation of its own hormones. Dopamine is a hormone, and it's like that's how the term chemical imbalance came about. And I mean, I could go on and on about this, but
what it brings to mind to me is A Brave New World with their drug Soma, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's really what we're living in, is a combination of George Orwell's 1984 and A Brave New World. It's not one or the other. We have both overt and covert forms of mind control, slavery. It's physical, it's mental, it's emotional, it's biological, so it's all over the board. It's not just one form. And I think you really stated everything very clearly there about psychotropics and the biological chemical warfare that's being waged against the individuals, especially the children. So I wouldn't even call it an opinion, because there's science that backs it. I wouldn't just say it's one man's opinion, because it's not. It's all over the board. You can just look up for yourself the scientific papers that have been done on these drugs, and you will find out. It's a Google search away, and you will find all the test results. It's all right there.
Yep.
So most people won't do anything like that. People want to abdicate their own personal responsibility onto the supposed authorities, which is just another cult. The authorities of, the cult of medicine, the cult of pharmaceuticals,
Yeah.
And we, the white coats, right? The people in the
white coats
coats
are coming.
Yeah, the white coats are already here, man.
2 if by land, 1 if by sea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the new priesthood.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So
I don't trust the medical industry in any form.
Sure.
It's absolutely horrific. But obviously, some people have to use it, so we have to find true, holistic solutions to that in the best way possible. I think nature can provide mostly all solutions that we need for any kind of natural occurring, phenomenon that's happening, natural occurring disease or anything like that. Now, when it comes to unnatural occurring diseases, we might have to reach for those, because nature didn't create those things. We did. So we're going to have to work on that. We're going to actually have to build something for that. But, nature's a very complex thing, and it's very amazing. So I wouldn't put it past it to say it has a solution for those ones too.
Sure.
Yeah,
I think there's a solution for everything.
Oh yeah.
Cannabis.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean,
yeah,
for real.
well, it's for certain things, but I think cannabis, we could talk about that for a long time, but yes, cannabis is really good if you do it with respect.
Yeah,
it's like entheogenic compounds, mushrooms, and things like that. You have to respect it before, I talked about it a little bit before, but when I do it and my body and my brain don't want to do it, I'm fucking, you're gonna get it's gonna be bad. This shit is fucking bitch slapping you around, if you I that's why I keep my when I was dosing, I was keeping it low.
Yeah.
Because this shit, when the door open, it's fucking slapping you.
You're talking about very mushrooms?
Yes. It's very vivid.
Right.
Vivid, and even if you don't hallucinate, you're gonna feel a lot of different things. You're gonna get through a lot of different things.
Oh, so,
yeah. Yes, this is one of the shortcuts that you can, the aids that you can get from nature when you're in the spiritual path,
right? But as far as cannabis being able to be used as more of a medicine than just something recreational, and none of my business why anyone's using it, to be honest. I don't really give a shit. But but for real, the benefits of having something like cannabis being used as a medicinal for medicinal purposes is astounding. You want to talk about a kid that, but all right, I don't want to talk about children that are out of control, because that's what kids do. They're experimenting, right? They're experimenting with nature. But we can talk about kids with epilepsy. We have to realize that the pharmaceutical company is in bed with they are just another arm of the ruling class, which is illegitimate. Okay, so that is the scope of where we need to be viewing this from. These people are the ones that are being used to keep everyone else in control. They don't look for cures. They slap Band-Aids on open wounds, Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid, and they don't look for cures for very curable things. When you have
another form of order followers is what they are.
Right. Yeah. And when you have people out there that are being medicated for things that are actually very easy to, not control, but to narrow down why it's happening, cause and effect, and being able to treat the cause instead of just dealing with the effects. We want to come to real solutions about things. You have to look at it at a causal level. And this is not just about medication or why medications are being used, but this approach to solutions can be used on many, many different planes and many, many different problems. You have to start looking at things from a causal level to find the real solution. And that is some of the best advice I think I could ever give to anybody. I know you two gentlemen don't need it, but I hope people out there listening to this can go, yeah, that's a good approach, and maybe try to change it up for themselves. And but anyways, cannabis can be used for things like epilepsy, things for fibromyalgia, pain, chronic pain, broken bones. It can be a good pain relief, for even high intensity pain, like broken bones and things like that. So the list goes on and on and on about the medical benefits of cannabis. But even if you suspect that your child has symptoms of ADHD, which is a made up thing,
Right.
If you want to help, so I think that it's widely made up, but I do also understand that there are certain head injuries that can lead to behavioral disorders in children. In fact, that's how mine happened. I was perfectly fine. Everything was going just great until I had a terrible accident on a bicycle and nearly died because of the head injury that I suffered from. And when I came out of it, I was like a different kid, and I was a maniac, like absolute maniac. But did I need to be medicated? I don't think so. I think maybe there are some other things going on. But anyways, enough about that. I think that certain medicines have their purpose. I don't think that the artificial ones, such as Adderall or psychostimulants, other psychostimulants, really serve any purpose other than to, no, they don't serve any other purpose other than to like cause more problems in the future for children and to line the pockets of these pharmaceutical agents and the doctors and everything like that. It's terrible. And another thing about how a lot of these kids even get put on meds that I'd like to bring up is their school teachers who spend more time with them during the waking hours of the day than the parents do. They go to the parents and say that the child is having trouble concentrating and following orders and, sitting still and yada, yada, yada. I think that they have all the signs and symptoms of ADHD, and I think you should bring them to the pediatrician. And a lot of this is backed by I don't even know if they know that they're doing it, but back in 2001 in the United States, George Bush passed the No Child Left Behind Act, which influences teachers into getting kids to sit still and shut the fuck up and study for their standardized testing, because if they don't pass the standardized testing, then the school loses funding. And then the teachers lose their jobs, and then they can't get another job because they have a bad teacher, whatever, on their resume. And it's a terrible, terrible thing. So, no, the 504 plans that the students get put on don't really, affect the funding of the schools. But the No Child Left Behind Act, if a certain school is not doing well in testing, then they do lose funding. So that's why we see a huge boom. There's graphs that will show you an extreme increase in medications happening shortly after 2002, and that these medications really took off as create slaves, and that's that. So using something like cannabis does actually help calm down a child that might be exhibiting behavioral disorders, because those do exist, whereas some children just don't, where you're supposed to hit certain milestones as a child where, you should understand by a certain age the difference between, thank you, Brandon. No child left with a mind. Exactly. And but there are milestones in childhood where you should be able to understand certain things. Like, no, you should not be going around punching people in the face because that's wrong. You're 7 years old. You should know that by now. That's for real. Like that is, there are milestones like that. And there are children out there that just don't get it. Now, should those children be put on meds? No. Should they be maybe given certain medicines? Well, depends. Is that cannabis is a natural derived medicine? Yeah. Are we looking at it from a causal level by giving them medicines? No, we're not. We're looking at an effect level. We're looking at the symptoms. We're not treating the actual cause of it. And 9 out of 10 times the cause of it is because the child's not getting attention at home.
Yeah.
They're not getting exercise. They have a shitty diet. Their fathers aren't paying attention to them, because about 73 or 74% on average, the amount of people that are put on these psychostimulants for behavioral disorders are boys, and they need their fathers.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so there are extreme things going on when it comes to cultural deviance in this country and in other countries all around the world.
Sure.
When it comes to broken homes producing broken people. And they have broken up those homes through culture intentionally. And it's mind control, something you wanted to talk about earlier, Fred. Mind control. That's all it is. And that is the causal level. If we can start figuring out how to keep our families together, get over petty differences, and raise children right. I know it sounds simple, but Occam's razor does serve a purpose, and it can very well be that simple. You know, Will Keller likes to say to simplify the profane or the profound. I forget exactly how he says it, but nonetheless, take things from a simple standpoint, and sometimes you win, you know, and sometimes you come out the other side smelling like roses. And, you know,
Well, in Canada, actually, we have some schools that there's an obligation for the children to take tranquilizant and how is it called? God damn it. They were giving that drug to every child in the 90s.
Yep.
Can't remember this is a form of insidious irresponsibility from the parents. My parents weren't there. They were both working. I was raised by strangers, you know, raised by a woman who had a kindergarten, and then when you're not abused, but if you have the lack of love, lack of understanding, lack of someone who show you how to behave morally and socially, then when you get thrown into society, you're a time bomb, you know.
That's right.
And there's a lot of children and young adults that have no tools at all. They're sent into this circus of madness without any tools to guide them. You know, they probably all raised as moral relativists. Most of them because their parents were, you know. I know my parents were moral relativists. You know, doesn't mean you're slave to this indoctrination. You can still change. You can still educate yourself and take in knowledge and empathy. You know, there's no easy way to do it. You know, and I want to finish on a beautiful some beautiful words. And we always think that we are alone, but we are not. We have brothers and sisters all over the world who are fighting and thriving so we can grow up together in cooperation, in understanding, and with care. And it's not you two guys, but it's the listener, to the person who went through this hour and a half of great conversation. Thank you guys, by the way, that you're not alone, and we have all brothers and sisters around the world that we can count on. It's your responsibility to get out and discover this world, and not just contemplating on Facebook and social medias. There's a beautiful world outside, full of people who will open their arms. You know, not everybody is a bad person. Not everybody is good, but you'll find someone. You know, I have the chance to have you guys on the LIBERcast and have a good conversation, and this is the moments that you want to keep. This is the moment you want to learn from. We can be together without always having the same opinion, without accepting everything from other people. We can still have a good conversation and grow together. And this is what I wanted to bring tonight on this one. Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, James, for your time and dedication. I like it. I liked it very much, and I would like to do it again with maybe even one or two more person. It would be great to have a table for discussion and even have debates about things and more profound and deep introspection and conversation together. So thank you very much again, guys. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. If you want to plug your, I bring up this. So this one there is coming September 10th and 11th. Brendan's gonna be there. Yeah, Brendan Spencer, who commented earlier, is gonna be there. There's a lot of great speakers, all great speakers. So I want to bring that up, and then telling you that you must be there. It's free. You know, you subscribe, you get there on the site, and it's free. So there's no justification to not listen to it.
That's true.
It's free. So go there, go on the freedomnaturallaw.com and subscribe there. And it's going to be a good ride for everyone. Brendan, you want to plug something?
Yeah, I'm really excited to be a part of such top caliber speakers, and you can find some of my work at seedtruth.com or the onegreatworknetwork.com, or you can find where I co-host the podcast with Nathan Kapp at cubbyhole.com. That's CUBBYWHOLE.com. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing all the other speakers. I really liking Brandon Spencer's work a lot. Lately, I've been checking him out and really appreciating what he has to say. And then I'm also looking forward to James's conference that's coming up.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm really excited about that as well.
When is it, James? Again, just refresh our memories.
It's on September 24th. Hold on 1 second. I can.
If you can bring it up.
Sure, no problem. There it is. Is that the one? That's the one. Okay. And here we go. Sorry for the delay, folks, but doing it live, doing it on the fly. And there we go. Can you see that and bring that in? All right. Oh, well, it doesn't need to be that big. So, come on now. Get rid of that. There we go. Yeah, Shattering the Illusion. Shattering the Illusion is a one-day online event about natural law, true anarchy, consciousness, mind control, and the occult. We're doing it just a few short weeks away here, a couple weeks after the event that the Brandons, both Spencer and Martin, are going to be at. And we, again, just, some familiar names from the previous conference. We have Chris Jansen and Will Keller, who are some of the prime organizers of the Freedom Under Natural Law conference. Also, Mark Passio is going to be there with us. And we have, Joe Murray, who's going to be co-organizing this event along with myself. And so he wasn't on that list. I'm sorry, Fred, but you had an outdated list there. But Joe Murray's also going to be at the Freedom Under Natural Law conference, featuring some of his music. And he's also going to be, doing like a short impromptu interview or something like that with the organizers, just to kind of, spread the word about his music. And so we're doing it again with our conference as well. And like Brandon Martin here was saying, I'm pleased as well with the talent, the speakers that are going to be here. I mean, Ivan, Jennifer, Sean, Nathan, Mark Devlin, and Mark Passio, and we just got Vinny Eastwood to come on board to give a talk, and we have new music from Diesel Automatic. Of course, Joe Murray is going to be on that track as well. Man, I'm really pumped. It's the first time I've ever done anything like this before. drew a lot of inspiration from Brandon Martin's S.E.E.D conference last year, and Will Keller and the Freedom Under Natural Law group, and the Natural Freedom Alliance. There's Will Keller, Chris Jansen, and the folks at the original Funnel Conference that happened this past February. You guys, Brandon, seriously, I said it to you before, I'll say it again. You guys proved that an online shindig like this could really be a success, and it's a new way of doing it to immortalize it. Not that we couldn't film it in person if we chose to do it in person, but this is just a way to use the tools that we have and to do it in a new way, because Brandon knows he's done these things in person, and so does, like, you know, a lot of other speakers know. When you know, like Ivan, he's had his own in-person conference. Mark Passio has had his own in-person conference. It's expensive as all hell, and you know, fucking money's tight for everybody these days. So it's just an amazing thing that I'm very pleased to be putting on. And my I don't know if anybody could tell, but my presentation is actually going to be about you know, psychostimulants and everything at that conference. So that's what you have to look forward to for me. As far as everything else that I'm up to, you can find the rest of my work at the One Great Work Network. And of course, you guys could go to my own YouTube page, I suggest going to Odyssey and searching for my channel there.
What's the name of your page on Facebook, so everyone can?
Oh, it's the same name everywhere. It's A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. So A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth, not to the truth, not, you know, it's you know, so you have success finding it. It's A Hitchhiker's Guide to Truth. My name is James Cordiner. My website is freeyourmindne.com. There's a lot going on. So
Awesome. So thank you, everyone, and I'm very very pleased by this first attempt. So thank you again to all the people listen to it, who will listen to it, and thank you again, Guy. I have so much gratitude for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah,
so,
thank you, Fred.
This Wednesday, I'm gonna have Derek for alchemy artistry. It's gonna be awesome. And then Wednesday, on 7th September, I'm gonna have Brendan Spencer talk about behaviorism. I'm looking forward. Both of them, they're good. They're great guys. I can't wait, man. Once a week it's still a lot of job, but oh man, it means it's worth it. It's worth all the time that we're putting in it. You know, I like the great work, and I like all the people that are in. So thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. See you soon. Here we go.
Peace. Agape.